Today, I have a very interesting show for you. I have a male guest on my podcast, and I think my husband might end up being a little bit jealous because I think he thought he'd be the first male guest I have on my podcast. But I brought on someone that I've known in the online space for about 4 years. We've never actually formally met. His name is Dan Morris, and he runs something called BC Stack. It's a bundle that comes out every year of different online marketing courses. And it's really unique. He does this bundle in a way that's different than any of the other bundles you see out there. And I never knew the backstory behind how BC Stack came to be, even though I've had a product in it for the last 3 or 4 years. So this episode, we're going to talk to Dan about how BC Stack got started, his entrepreneurial journey. It's like no other episode I've done on the show to date. So I think you'll really enjoy it and take some out of the box type tips and tricks away from it. So let's dive in and talk to Dan. You are listening to the Empowered Business Podcast. I'm your host, Monica Froese, a mom of 2 and your secret weapon to creating a 6-figure digital product business. I'm on a mission to help 1,000 women make $100,000 a year. That's right, $100 million towards financial independence for women. As an online business expert, I am teaching you everything I know right here week after week, so you can join us on the journey to $100 million. Sound good? Then let's jump in. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Hey.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I would like to get started with your entrepreneurial journey, where you started, how you became an entrepreneur, and what you do today.
Sure, that's good stuff. And I can't imagine that it's going to be too different from anyone else's, but everyone has their own steps. Although, in my opinion, if you took every entrepreneur in the world and you wrote down their journey, I think you could probably see the same steps, no matter what it is that they did. So anyway, mine started in 2008. I had been a commercial developer. I had built 65 Walgreens stores in Arizona, California, Washington State, North Carolina, and Tennessee. I built 65 projects. And, those are big projects. And then here in Nashville, we tore down a mall and we built a Walmart and a Lowe's and built a Firestone and a bunch of other stuff. But, 2008 is when the economy crashed. And it crashed in a big way for real estate because, it was the Lehman Brothers that pretty much took everybody down. So for us, that meant Walgreens, who was building 400 stores a year, decided they were just going to build 8. And they were 400 stores a year for, it was a long time, probably 10 years. And in fact, when I lived in Phoenix developing for Walgreens, there was there's too many projects. There's just no way to do them. It's just impossible. And even if we got more people, Walgreens was aggressive. So in fact, we built some stores in the middle of nowhere thinking that neighborhoods would grow up around them. And then a year later, there's 30,000 homes around. Just nuts.
So a neighborhood would grow up around Walgreens.
Yeah. 67th and Olive in Phoenix, there's a Walgreens. But when we built it, there was some homes a block away. But all we built it was based on the building permits. We saw all these homes are going to be built. So we got done before the contractors. And then the Walgreens just sat there. In fact, one of them sat there for a year because they couldn't find a pharmacist who wanted to work in the middle of nowhere. Just sat there. But that didn't matter to me. I'm the developer. Walgreens pays rent. So 2008, when the stock market crashed and everything else, the guy that I was working for, who is really wealthy, he didn't exactly know what to do. He didn't know how long it was going to last, but he had a heart. So even though, we had projects we were finishing up, but it was largely slow. And he kept us on staff, paid us fully, the 5 of us. So from 2008, 2013, I actually got paid to learn internet marketing. And I say that because a lot of times there wasn't a lot to do. So in anticipation of this is probably going to go away, I better figure something out. I started figuring out social media, how to work. And I got involved locally with this Foursquare group. I remember the app Foursquare. And I actually became an ambassador for Foursquare at the very beginning. And then that took me to this meeting with this lady that I rarely ever see, but I probably should. It was probably 2013. And she grasped one concept about social media that I hadn't quite grasped. And that was the hub and spoke model of social media. I'd never heard it explained before. Remember, this is before Vaynerchuk and pretty much everybody. And she just drew me this picture of a circle, and she put a dot in the middle with your website. And then she drew like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn around the outside. She said, all right, so basically, she wasn't even an entrepreneur, but she grasped this concept. So anyway, she says, basically, your business is in the center, and then you use all these things to talk about your business to drive traffic back. So like all the social media things are like your spokes. They're driving traffic to the center. And that one lunch, I mean, that whole thought process, every piece that I'd ever learned up to this point made sense. I was like, oh, now it all makes sense. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm not building a business on Facebook. I'm building a business, and I'm using Facebook to drive traffic to the business. Oh, yes, this makes sense. Get it now. It was a good lunch.
Sounds like it.
So then, Twitter was new, and I was actually the number 2 Twitter user in the state of Tennessee at the time. They had all these, different companies had apps and stuff. And I was 2. I had the most followers, the most engagement, talked the most. And I had a lot of time to talk. So I did a lot of talking on Twitter. And then I swear it was like 2 months later, and all of a sudden the country music stars found Twitter. And then it was all, and it was like, Garth Brooks got 1 million followers. Well, guess I'm not going to.
Garth Brooks stood you up.
But while I was there in the early days, I ended up talking to Kelsey Grammer for a while. He posted something about, what was the show that he ended with?
Frasier?
Yeah. So I just sent him an early note on Twitter. I was like, I cannot believe that I'm going to write to Frasier. But I said, dude, have you noticed a difference in demographics between your Cheers audience and your Frasier audience, fans? And then we ended up having this long Twitter conversation about what an interesting question. I was like, it is, isn't it? Were they younger and older? And then Gary Coleman joined the conversation. And I don't know, it was just cool at the time. So sort of got all of a sudden this really shallow love for the social media based on nothing other than, I was talking to Gary Coleman. Like, whoa, that's cool. And Ricky Schroeder and Frasier, they were all in this conversation. So then I actually joined an MLM.
Okay, which one?
It's a good question. It was a travel one.
So MLM is multi-level
marketing.
Yeah, I almost froze on that because some people might not know the term MLM.
My first attempt, and it was a travel one. I cannot remember the name, but basically they gave you a clone of Expedia, kind of.
Okay.
It was your site, and if anyone booked through it, like you made a commission.
So kind of like affiliate marketing in a way.
Yeah, but then you recruited people, to also be part of the thing, and then you made more money recruiting than you did on commission.
Than you did, yes.
Yeah. So I approached one friend, and he shut the door, and at that moment, he wasn't a friend anymore. So that moment, and we're just talking a few months in, I told my friend about this thing, and he was like, MLM, I'm out, shutting the door, and then we haven't ever spoken since. And that was the moment where I realized, okay, I am not down for this. I'm not down for MLMs. I like my friends. I don't need to annoy them. So I created a blog and lettersfromdan.com, which doesn't exist now. I
remember that.
And went to the NAMS conference in Atlanta, which was
what year was this?
Maybe 2014, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe 2013. I guess at the same time as when my boss decided, all right, guys, we're out. Walgreens is not coming back, so see ya. See ya. I decided, all right, well, I tried the MLM thing for a couple months and I realized that's not for me. And then decided, all right, well, I'm just going to make a business on a blog. That's what I'm going to do. So I went to this NAMS conference, or it's Niche Affiliate Marketing Conference, and I didn't know a lot, but I did know Twitter. Like I was really good at Twitter. So I actually created a bunch of Twitter seminars at this conference, of which I was not in charge of, but I would teach people in the hall. And then on any breaks, I said, hey, come down to, this big table in the middle of the hotel, and I'll teach everybody what I knew about Twitter. And all of a sudden, I've got pictures of it from people that took from overhead in the atrium. There might've been 50 people learning about Twitter and this thing. So I just was teaching Twitter, and then people were asking other questions. And then I found myself with fodder for the blog. I was like, all right, I know something. I could teach Twitter stuff. And then my Twitter account got stolen, got taken. Twitter shut it down. And I still don't know why. But I had experimented with so many apps and things that, like, if you tweet this, it will automatically go to this social media account. Like, what are those OAs, those authorizations where you authorize this site to be able to tweet on your behalf or whatever? So I had so many of those connected to my Twitter account that I couldn't get into anymore. That somehow I figured out how to get into my Twitter account through an app. And I was like, how did that just happen? How did I just do that? So I went back and I refigured out exactly what it is that I did. And somehow I bypassed the blocks that Twitter put on the account. And then I got into my account. So then I wrote a book, like how to get into your Twitter account if it gets hacked. And then it involves you going out, getting accounts at these other places so that you could navigate your way back in. All of that has obviously been closed at this point. But
I was going to say, well, you wrote a book about it. So I imagine that Twitter decided to close that off.
So I made money on the book and I was like, well, this is working. All right. I lost my job and I've already started to make money on something that I knew.
So is this like your first digital product that you created essentially?
Yeah. And I sold it to the people at NAMS. Now, I didn't have a list, but what I did while I was there, while I was teaching Twitter, is I had everyone write their name and email address on a pad and told them if I learned anything else, I would email them. So I started to create my own list. And then the second year, I asked the guy that ran the conference the next year if I could create a guidebook for the conference. And he said, whatever. So I created this guidebook, and then on Twitter, I advertised it, and they would come to my site to get the guidebook. And then they'd put their name and email in. Like, it was all through me. So all of a sudden, I'm creating a list of all the attendees that were coming to NAMS, but, based on hashtags. So, and I'd written about who the different speakers were and what they knew about, like this whole workbook. So that was kind of the start. And then, Rachel at the time, my wife, Rachel Martin, she wasn't my wife at the time. She was running findingjoy.net, which she had started, I think, in 2010. And it was a pretty big motherhood. And at one of the conferences where I was asked to speak about Twitter, I met her there. And then I didn't really pay much attention. When you're speaking at a conference, you get lots of people that come up to you after and ask you questions. She was one of them. I wrote her name down and stuff. And then I went and looked at her site, and I was like, whoa, she's got 150,000 followers or something on her blog. And I was like, that's a pretty big deal. So I wrote her back and I said, hey, I think that maybe I didn't pay you enough attention. I didn't respect what you'd already built. I just was saying hello, but probably should have been more respectful. And so we ended up chatting, and then we started a mastermind group, which is something everybody should do. And the mastermind group was Rachel had goals, I had goals, Craig and Aileen had goals, but we didn't really have anyone to say the goals out loud, have people question, talk about ideas. It was really, really helpful. So one of the things that Rachel said was, people keep asking for if she has her blog posts in book form. And I said, what are they asking you? She said, they want them in a book. And I was like, well, that will take us 5 days. Let's make a book. So I had her just copy and paste her blog posts into a Word doc. And then I paid somebody on Fiverr to make it look fancy. And then we sold 3,000 units in the next 90 days, maybe, at $9 a piece.
What year was this?
2015, maybe.
Okay.
So she wanted to sell it for 5 or 7. And I was like, we should sell it for 9. If they're asking for it, they want it. So we sold it. I think we sold it for 9. And we actually put on the page, if you'd like to buy the blog posts that you're reading in a book form, here it is. They already knew that the blog posts were free. Mm-hmm. They didn't mind. They wanted to buy them in a book form. So we had a PDF. That's all it was, a PDF. And we sold 3,000 of those or something. So then at some point in time, we decided, what we should do is we should turn this into a business, like you and I. We should put on workshops, like how you built the blog, and we'll do the social media side. So we started doing workshops around the world. We did 150, no, maybe not that many, 120.
Wow.
8-hour workshops, blogging concentrated workshops.
Okay. So this is where Blogging Concentrated came from.
Yeah. So we named it Blogging Concentrated because she was a blogger. And we started doing the workshops, and we used not only my Walgreens experience, but now I had a bunch of social media clients and other people because, when in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So I knew the most about Twitter in my peer group. So I was the king of Twitter. And you'll find that in every industry. The guy that knows the most, whether he knows everything, doesn't really matter. The guy that knows the most is the king, or the gal, queen. Mean to be sexist. So what we figured out quickly with Blogging Concentrated was, and I don't know exactly how we figured this out, but I figured out how to not pay for venues. I don't exactly know what went into me figuring that out, but I did figure out how to not pay.
For where you were hosting the workshops?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did, like I said, 120. I only paid for a venue once. And then we also figured out how to get people to buy tickets, so that it dawned on us at one point, you're like, wait a second, if we know how to not pay for venues and we know how to get people to buy tickets, why don't we just pick places we want to travel?
And then you can write it off.
And then we'll just travel there. So we did 7 workshops in New Zealand twice.
What?
2 different years. Yeah, we did 7 in a row.
These workshops, what were they like?
So we did 8-hour workshops where Rachel and I taught all day, and we created a curriculum for each workshop. So one was about traffic, one was about social media, one was, whatever it was. And then we would market, we're coming to your town and we're going to do this particular curriculum on this Saturday. And here's all the subjects that we cover. And yeah, we would fill the room. It was great.
How many people in a workshop?
25 to 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
In New Zealand. And these people were following Rachel or you? How did you find them?
No. We had a different model.
Okay.
Yes. This is the genius of the model. So this model requires that you have no ego. I must say it.
Okay.
If you can put away your ego and realize that you're going to make money and travel, then this work for you great.
Okay. So
basically the concept is you find a mover and a shaker in the place that you want to go. Whether it's in real estate or business, you find somebody who is he's got the billboards, who's got the name, who's trying to grow. And then you say, look, I want to come to your town. We're going to put on this workshop. What we'd like to do is we'd like to put the workshop on in your name. And we're going to be your guests. So you're going to introduce the day. You could talk maybe about your business at lunch, but you'll invite all your business partners, friends, all the people that want to learn about social media and marketing online. And it will be your event, like David Stern's event, featuring, Dan and Rachel from Blogging Concentrated. And then we'll sell the tickets to it on our site. So you just drive them to our site. We'll have your name. It'll say David Stern's event. And then you'll fill the seats. We'll make the money. It'll be a big name for you. You're bringing this, innovative concept to town. We're going to teach these people a lot of stuff. You'll be the superhero and we'll use your office, or we'll use, somebody in town, I'm sure you do, that has a conference facility that they'd be willing to lend us. We can let that person talk about their conference facility at lunch because it's all going to be locals. And then basically we paid for lunch.
You didn't even pay the people who let you use their name and their audience?
No.
What?
And we never paid anything.
And you did this over 100 times?
Yeah.
This is mind-boggling to me.
And it works great. And everyone's happy because...
But so you live in the States, so let's talk about New Zealand. How do you even begin to find these people to reach out to?
Oh, well, just use our networks, our contact networks. And actually, Rebecca in New Zealand reached out to us. Would you like to come to New Zealand? Yes, we would.
Well, then you must have started getting word of mouth eventually.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the website started getting more traffic, and the traffic came from more places. And then we got questions about, can you come to the city? And then we're like, sure, we can come to Boise. So then we're like, all right, Boise, who do we know in Boise? Well, ClickBank. Let's talk ClickBank. Maybe they have a training facility. We could meet in their training facility. And then in San Francisco, Twitter. Let's meet at Twitter's offices. And in Philadelphia, guess what? AWeber's there. We'll talk to AWeber and see if we can meet there. And
did you do Twitter's offices?
All these places. And in North Carolina, iContact is there. We'll see if they have a training facility. We'll meet in their training facility at iContact.
This is actually, when you're saying this is very on par for how corporate marketing works. I don't know why I'm so shocked, because this is actually what I did for 11 years in corporate. Nice. But this is for some reason, such a foreign thing for me to consider in our space that I'm kind of thrown for it. But we would host vendor workshops, Cisco would host us in their Raleigh headquarters. And so it's not a foreign concept to me, what you're saying, but in this world, it is for some reason.
Yeah. And when I told people that we're meeting at Twitter's offices, that even helps the sales go up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Or we're meeting at AWeber. People are like, oh, that's cool. And then they give us a tour because they want everybody to use AWeber. I mean, it was great. Everybody wins. So that's what we did. But while we were in New Zealand, I had mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk at one point. Mm-hmm. And many people in the room had never heard of Gary Vaynerchuk. And I thought to myself, I thought the internet and Facebook were the great equalizer. How could they be in our world and not know who that is? So on the plane, on the way back, we started talking about how, even though it was strange that we didn't know Vaynerchuk, it was strange for some of them that we didn't know their top people. So we're like, what if we put together a project where we somehow introduce all of our experts to their audience and all of their experts to our audience? What could we do where everybody could get a new audience and we could learn about people we haven't met before? So this is how the idea of BC Stack came around. It was all right, we're going to find a bunch of experts in different parts of the world, and hopefully nobody knows them from this part of the world, so that we can introduce people from the left to the right. And it was important to us because when we were in New Zealand, I would help people with their WordPress site. And they would not be using Yoast. They would not have any of the normal plugins that we use. They would have different plugins. And I'd be like, you guys have different plugins than we have, even though it's the same thing. How do you not know about Yoast? And then how do we not know about this? So I realized we need more, there's a lot of inbreeding. We need more cross-contamination is what we need. So that's what we did. We found 65 experts from all around the world in our travels, and we got a product from each person. And that was like the bait. It was our thought. It was like, we'll take a product and then we'll sell this whole group, this whole stack of products together. And then in order for it to work, if Terry Fisher from Canada is selling a product about how to get your podcast onto Amazon Alexa as a briefing, then if that's in the list of things that you are allowed to download once you buy, if you choose that, then like you'd probably be a good person in Terry's audience. That'd be a good person. But if you skip it, which is great, if you skip it, then that's great for Terry because he doesn't need you in his audience if you don't care about it. And I always tell people it's like the salad bar. You buy the whole salad bar, but I'm never going to put beets on my salad, even though I already paid for the whole salad. I'm not putting beets. They're on there, but I'm not putting them. So all of the experts, when they put their products in here, the product is like the bait. It's like saying, hey, I'm an email marketing expert. In this course, I'm going to teach you email marketing so that if you need email marketing expertise, then you get that and then you become a member of his audience. So everybody gets this filtered audience of people interested in their particular product. That's just the last filter. There's obviously a few more filters to even get to the sales page. But that's the idea, is that each contributor at the end would end up with a new audience of people they couldn't meet otherwise. And then all the buyers would end up with all these products that they couldn't get for that price or they didn't even know existed at that point.
Well, before we start recording, I mentioned to you that I couldn't figure out why BC Stack leads, because I've had a product in there since 2017 every year. I couldn't figure out, because I tracked the leads, and I couldn't figure out why those leads always did better, because I've been in like numerous bundles. Yeah. And I didn't know anything about the origins of where it came. I found out through a mutual friend about it, and I think I like emailed you once. I remember being in Disneyland actually when I emailed you. So I didn't know anything about what it was. I was like, sure, I'll do this bundle. I was doing a lot of bundles. So I didn't know, but now it makes a lot of sense because all the clarity came across. All of the other bundles, they're like polluted water. It's like recycling the same people over and over again. And I did not realize that you were pulling people from such varied, not just geographical, but just different backgrounds. And so that's why I actually get fresh people every time
There might only be 10 people who are in it every year, might be. But otherwise, I try to have 80% new people who I don't even know. And 90%, maybe 95% of everyone that's in the stack is a cold call from me. And that's, let's back it up a little bit. So if we back it up a little bit, in order to make Stack work, which is kind of where you got to, I started making what I called the universe spreadsheet, and this is something that I teach everybody that we work with to do. And that is figure out what niche you're in first, and then make a spreadsheet of every person who's in that niche. So that means go to the bookstore and find everyone who writes about that topic. Go to Amazon, get the top Amazon authors, go to LinkedIn, who are the top people, like find top marathoners, whatever it is, top people in movies who are making documentaries about this topic, top people on Twitter, like figure out the entire universe so that you know all of the players. And in theory, you will find the Oprah and Tom Cruise of your niche. You'll know who the top players are. You probably already do. And I will say that if you don't know the top players and they don't know you, then you're not the top players. So like, for instance, I don't know Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins doesn't know me. So, I'd hate to say that, but he's the top of the funnel. Like he's him and Gary Vaynerchuk and like Russell Brunson. They're like the top, right? I'm not there, but I'm working my way. They're like on the list. And in fact, Tony Robbins' son was in the stack last year.
Oh, I do remember that.
Yes,
I do remember that.
We're working our way there. Little by little. But if you don't keep your eye on the prize, then you never ask Tony Robbins' son, right?
Right.
So we have this spreadsheet and I add to it all the time. Every single bundle that I see, I write down every single person who was in it and the product that they had. Because I don't want that product in stack. Like it is already given away. And then some of those people I will go after next year. Like I'll wait for a year or something like that. But I just keep expanding so that I have a list of everyone who's in it. And the list is a spreadsheet. It's not like I'm using some fancy database. I actually have a spreadsheet, which I happen to love spreadsheets. I
do too.
I got a column for like how much money we've paid these people, like how many leads they brought in, what products, what year were they in the stack, what year were they in other things. I have a bunch of physical addresses because we do send out a lot of physical postcards just to say hello and happy birthday or Merry Christmas or whatever, because trying to do a little bit differently. And now we're on year 7. And I will say this year is different because we've decided for the most part, we're trying to get 65 brand new products, like product launches, things that haven't ever existed before is the goal. So it can be kind of like the world's largest product launch. kind of my thought. I wanted to do something different this year, that we haven't done in the past. So I think that's going pretty well so far. We just finished our pre-sale in May, and we had more pre-sales than we've ever had before, by about 10.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting too, that you pre-sell. So every year you buy, you have the opportunity to buy next year's bundle on pre-sale. That's the first thing you do, right?
Yeah, we have 4 tiers of price.
Okay.
And the tiers are associated with the risk.
Okay.
When you buy Stack next week, you will have 1 upsell. No, there'll be 2. But the first upsell is going to be, would you like to pre-buy Stack for next year? And the reason that exists is twofold. One is the very first year we did it, it was $27. And I promised everyone that they would always be able to get it for $27. Even though I realized at the end of year 1, that wasn't enough money to pay the affiliates and pay for all the advertising. So we had to raise the price. But how do I raise the price and keep the promise? I'll just make $27 be the upsell price when you buy Stack. And it's 27 for the reason because I promised, but also because it is a lot of risk. That's a year in advance.
Right.
You have to have faith that we're going to be alive, that we're going to be making the product, that the product's going to have good stuff in it, all of that stuff, that computers are still going to be around. You have to have $27 of faith. So you get a reduced price. And then we do a Cyber Monday deal, which is $34. And then about a month before Stack comes out, I do some videos where I talk about some of the products and some of the people that are in Stack. So now we've taken away a little risk because now we're only a month away. Obviously it's going to happen. And then I've also told you a few of the products and people in it. So it's a $36 pre-sale. It's higher than $27 because there's less risk.
Mm-hmm.
You have some, but it's still, you have to buy it without knowing it. So You still get a 30 versus 47. And then the week of Stack, it's 47 and you start over. You get the upsell for next year.
How many people buy on average every year?
We are now at about 10,300 people.
Wow.
A year. Yeah,
and that is your main project that you work on now.
My goal was that it will be the only project.
Okay, so what happened to the workshops? Aside from COVID, it's COVID what did the workshops in or?
So I was married at the time that we were doing the workshops and the marriage was rocky. And then doing workshops with Rachel did not help, right? Even though we took every single precaution that we could, instead of staying at hotels, we always stayed with bloggers or somebody that we knew in the area. Not to save money, but we wanted to respect our spouses to say, hey, we're not just sleeping in a hotel room. I'm on the top bunk bed in the room and she's in the guest room over there. And, we pictures and we wanted to know, there's not a lot of funny business going on. But it's hard. Even if you have a good professional relationship, it's difficult on a marriage. So the marriage ended. And with that, then all of a sudden, we've got kids and we've got to figure out the schedules. And I have all weekends. I have the kids every weekend. I have them from Wednesday to Sunday. So doing Saturday workshops was not a thing anymore. It died. And then shortly after that was COVID. So I kind of died anyway. But yeah, those 2 things contributed to the death of it.
So you don't think you'll revive them anytime soon?
So growing up, I grew up military. And my dad was in the Air Force. My brother's in the Air Force now. My grandfather was General Patton Security Guard. We're a military family. My dad would come home every day at 5:15. And he would be home and he'd play basketball with me till bedtime. That, I didn't have that as an entrepreneur. You're on at all times.
Mm-hmm.
And then the workshops, even though, there were weekends and then we were home most of the time, but, we'd be gone for a weekend and come back. I still realized I missed some time with the kids. So that realization was hitting me during COVID. Wow, I have a lot of time with the kids now. A lot. I have the kids 65% of the time, maybe 70% of the time. So they're the main focus of life at the moment. But what I also found was last year is I really disliked client work. Because client work involved deadlines and meetings and times, and I wanted to get away from that. Well, the workshops, as fun as they are to be on stage, to have that, there's a lot of, what is that chemical that's going on in your body when you're on stage and endorphins?
Adrenaline?
Yeah, all that is so fun, right? When you're on stage, you're doing your thing and people are paying you. And there's a lot of ego and fun involved with that.
Oh, yeah.
And I would never want to run from that. But at the same time, the opportunity to just do Stack, and then we do one more in October called Podcasters Kit, to just do 2 projects a year and then spend the rest of the year as a dad has been very attractive to me at this stage in my life. So as much as I'd like to go back, what I really would like to do is I'd like to make sure that we get Stack and Podcasters Kit to the point where we don't have to do anything else all year. That's our income for the year.
Including now, Rachel still has her site that you guys.
Yeah, but what I want to do is I want to take away all the financial pressure from that site. So like she had a Penguin Random House deal for a book and she got paid pretty good money for that and got on Today Show and all those things. But there is kind of still that constant pressure for writing and then page views and then ad income. Like she has that built into her brain. So if we get busy homeschooling or something and there's not as many page views that month, that's hard on her. Like she doesn't like to do that. She likes to contribute, she wants to be that person in the family. But since we both do Stack and Podcasters Kit, I want both of them to take away the financial worries. So then she could just write. She can do her thing. She can pay attention to her audience. We can sell books. We can make money. But I also take away the bummer part, like the stress. Oh, I have to get back to writing. So she doesn't have that anymore. She could it'd be fun instead of a job. That's my goal. I don't know if that's her goal. That's my goal.
So how big is Podcasters Kit compared to BC Stack?
Podcasters Kit is in year 3 compared to BC Stack, which is in year 7. So I would say it's a quarter the size.
Okay.
And I'm not going to say, I will say it was an error. It was an oversight, or it was a lack of truly thinking it through when we started Podcasters Kit. But the world of BC Stack, the world of email marketing and digital marketing, affiliate marketing, the buyers who become the affiliates for Stack, they have lists and understand lists. Podcasters do not have lists, or there's very few of them.
Interesting.
So I get, 60 people, 60 podcasters on board with podcasting courses, which is hard to find, I must tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And then I start to get some affiliates in the podcasting world to help, and they all have a list of 100 people. That's different than Willie Crawford, who's got like 2 million people, right? It's a different world. So what I went into it with was I'm totally going to leverage BC Stack to make Podcasters Kit grow. Is what I found is that there aren't that many people in the digital marketing world who think of podcasting like they think of Twitter. It's not going to just start a podcast. It's more difficult. It's its own entity. So there is overlap. But the overlap's not great. I mean, it's 20%, not 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So that was something I had to think through. And it's growing, but it will take longer to get to where Stack is than Stack took.
Okay, so for people listening, what is the value proposition? Why should someone buy BC Stack? What makes it so different to you?
What we do is very difficult. It seems simple. It seems like you can go get ClickFunnels, you can drag and drop, and then you've got something working, right? You've got this funnel, and now you can sell product. But it's not that simple. Like the parts are one thing, but the skills behind the parts are something else. So for me, every entrepreneur who's started online but isn't making the money that they want to make, part of that is because they're missing a skill. Like they're either not good copywriter, or they're not good at traffic, or they don't have all the pieces set up that need to be set up. And they need that. And one of the stumbling blocks is human behavior. That is, you tend to focus your time where you're good. If you're good on Twitter, you spend time on Twitter. If you're good on email, you spend time on email. And that means that the things like e-commerce, like setting up an e-commerce site, which sounds like very difficult. And most people are like, oh, I don't know about that. I'd rather just sell digital products. Like, it sounds difficult, but what if you just learned it? And if I put that in front of you, I give you that option. Like you can learn e-commerce, you can learn Alexa, you can learn Clubhouse. If I take away all the barriers to you learning them, but not only the barrier of, one of the big barriers is paying for all this education. So we take away that barrier immediately. You just pay one price for the education. But the other barrier is you learn Clubhouse and then you go start to do it. But then that means you stop learning. Like now you're not on the next course. You're not trying to build an entire thing. You're just learning Clubhouse and you're going to go use Clubhouse. But what I want you to do is I want you to have for the rest of 2021 is in your mind that you're going to get your entire business set up. You're going to take this Pinterest product. You're going to figure out what it is I need to do on Pinterest. You're not only going to go start it, but then you're going to put it on the calendar. Every Tuesday, I'm going to do these 9 steps. And that's it. Every Tuesday, I'm going to do these 9 steps at 1:00. And then at 2:00, I'm going to do these email marketing steps that I learned in this email marketing course last week. And every week I'm adding these things into my portfolio. And because all of the courses are right in front of me, I don't have to look for them. I don't have to wonder what I need to learn. I don't have to figure out who I need to learn from. Like I can just learn and I can actually get my business in the place where it needs to be, because you can't just do social media posts all day. You can't just spend your time on Facebook. You can't be creating content all day. That's not the name of the game. It's not content creation. Content is what helps drive the traffic back to the business. So if you create content for content's sake, you end up losing out on the business. You're like, no, I got to do 5 blog posts a week. Well, why? Why do you have to do 5 a week?
I have a whole podcast episode I did ranting about this, actually. Yeah. I do not understand the concept of blogging without the intention of what the end result is. Like, that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense to me.
So BC Stack is this shot, is your one shot. It's like the Eminem song. Like, this is your shot to get 65, and really there's actually 80. I don't ever tell anybody this, but because every once in a while somebody's unsatisfied with the product, or they tell me, I already have this product, can I get my money back? And I say, I only promised you 65, but I gave you 80, so use the other 70.
That's very smart because, people can be. But here, okay, so I told you before we start recording, I've been in a lot of bundles. I've bought a lot of bundles, really crappy ones, like products that I don't, when the bundle owners say that they like approved them, I'm like, well, were you blind? I mean, because I've gotten some really bad ones, but it's very rare for me to consume other people's content at this point, like learning content. I really just don't anymore. But I do. There's a few I always select. I am selective with what I'm not going to go on 65 people's email list. I don't need to be. So I'm selective when I get the BC Stack of what I select. And I've not had one yet that I was like, what was Dan thinking? So how do you manage that?
Well, we have people. We have two people in particular, my wife and my mother.
Okay.
We like go through and make sure all the things work.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
tell me when
Good.
there's problems. And in fact, a few years ago, we actually had a product where the traffic strategy was to make fun of someone online.
Oh.
And then get other people on board with that. And like you create this big controversy and it turns into traffic. And I was like, I mean, your product is well thought out, but I don't think that I'm allowed to promote that idea. It seems like a bad idea.
Sounds like a bad idea.
Oh, so some things we get rid of, some things we add to. I'm like, that product's a little weak. It's a little thin. And every once in a while, somebody tries really hard and then the product is a little thin and I actually don't have the heart to tell them no. So I make it a bonus instead.
Oh, smart. Yeah. I have to say, so when is that available this year?
The 13th to the 19th
of June.
And anytime around the 13th, you should start checking because once my sales page is done, I turn it on.
Yeah. Well, we're going to link to it in the show notes as well. I know you always have a wait list for it.
Yeah, I respect New Zealand time zone, right? So I try to get it open as soon as possible when it's the 13th for them, which is like the day before. So once it's the 12th, just refresh the screen because at some point in time, I'll just let it fly. And then it stays open until Hawaii time, midnight on the 19th, whatever that is.
That is very nice of you. I will say I tend to close things down on Eastern time and people don't like that. I have an employee who's in Arizona. So she often, because, closing it down, there are automated ways for me to do it, like with deadline funnel and stuff, but I'm really type A and I'm particular with how we close things down and I can't stay up to 3 a.m. So I have gotten flack over the years for closing my stuff too soon.
Oh, yeah. I like the money part. So.
Well, I do too. So I guess I really should get on board with these other time zones.
I mean, I sleep very little Stack Week because it's a worldwide audience.
I can only imagine.
And the affiliate requests, they've been coming in really quickly this year, which is surprising to me, but they come in like every minute.
Well, you incentivize the 2-tier thing with the affiliates, which
is good. And we give away $25,000 of cash bonus.
Yeah, you have one of the best, even of like big affiliate launches, like, the Stu McLarens of the world.
Yeah.
You have like the best incentivized.
Wait, how much does he give away?
You know what? I launched it the same week as him this year, so I didn't even look.
I told myself next year I'm going to do something crazy like $100,000.
Well, 25,000 is pretty good. And I know a couple of my friends always are vying for that top spot. I just let them have it.
I don't think she's going to participate this year. I think she's on hiatus. So she's won the last 2 years. That means the door is open for someone.
Oh, I know someone who's going to want it. It's not going to be me though.
Yeah. And it's 13 layers deep. So it's not like the top 5. And then there's like most sales on a Wednesday and those kinds of things during the week. So
okay, so I'm going to link to the Stack page. So even if it's closed, you can sign up and get on the list and you'll get an email from Dan when it opens, even if it's not open. Because this podcast, if people are listening in real time, is going to be out 2 or 3 days before the page should open.
Put your name in the little form and then I'll send you an email right when it opens.
Is there anywhere else you would like us to send people other than the BC Stack page?
Oh, you could send me directly to my house. I mean, that would be okay. Other than Stack, I'm on Twitter at Dan R. Morris.
Okay, we'll link to that.
And I have a podcast called Tracing the Path.
Yeah, I went down that rabbit trail a little bit earlier when I saw it. I was expecting it to be about marketing, but it's about history.
Oh, it is. I grew up a huge fan of Paul Harvey and Charles Kuralt. I love those people that just tell stories and then at the end you're like, whoa, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So I started telling those kinds of stories. And
I added it to my list. So I listen to podcasts on my walk. That's like the only time I allow myself to listen to podcasts. So I put you on my list.
Nice. Because it takes a hell of a lot of research.
Oh, I can imagine. My husband's into binging a lot of YouTube lately, and we were watching this one guy. He's so informative, like really great at telling stories, like off the wall stories. I can't even think. They're just so off the wall. The research that must go into it and the graphics and stuff is like, man, I'm always thinking about monetizing everything. So I'm like, is he making enough money off of this to be doing all this work?
That's funny because I want Stack to be so big that I can just keep doing the podcast without worrying about it.
Well, I think the Stack should be a lot bigger because, like I said, I think that is the only bundle I've ever bought that actually I used, to be honest with you.
There's actually there's a quiz product that I'm a huge fan of. You know, when we were working with KindleBody.com, the quiz funnel that we put for him ended up making him $10,000 a month in ebook sales. And that was from YouTube leads. And that was for fitness ebooks. So I'm excited about the quiz product. And I think there's a challenges product, how to do challenges. And then Dan Miller from 48 Days to the Work You Love, the New York Times bestseller. He's a huge mastermind guy. His is $7,500 a month to join his mastermind. And he has his how to do a mastermind product Stack.
Awesome.
So,
wow.
Yeah, there's a few that I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. And these are just people that I would never be in a bundle with. So it's interesting. I think you do a really great job with the curating. Okay. So my kids are about to barge in and interrupt our interview anyways. So I have little ones. You have adult ones that maybe you can tell to stay out. But when my 3-year-old comes home, there is no staying out of mom's office. So we're going to get interrupted now anyway. So what I will do is, like always, we drop all the links in the show notes. And thanks for telling us your story and how BC Stack started. Very fascinating. Thank you.
I hope it was cool for someone.
I'm sure it was. I was very interested in it. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Empowered Business Podcast. Let's stay in touch. I just opened a brand new Facebook group for digital product creators. Whether you are new to digital products or an existing digital product creator, our new Facebook group, Digital Product Insiders, is perfect for you. Head on over to monicafroze.com/group to join for free. See you here again next week.